Do what you love. Follow your dreams. Live your best life. Phrases like that get thrown around a lot and I think get blown out of proportion and misunderstood a lot of the time. So in this video, I want to give you some no-nonsense advice on how you can actually start to do what you love for a living. I've been working as a freelance filmmaker for a little while now, and during that time, I've had the privilege of working on some pretty awesome projects. Now, it's all very well me sitting here and showing you cool clips from jobs that I've done, but that doesn't help you, and it also doesn't represent the whole truth. For ages, I thought that doing something creative for a living was something that was totally out of reach for me, not because I doubted myself or my own ability, but just because I had no idea how to even get started. I didn't know what steps to take to start going in that direction. Whether you're into photography, videography, music, or some other art form, how do you actually get people to pay you for doing that? My first piece of advice has got to be find your people. We're currently on our way to the NEC for the photography and video show. If this was a tutorial on how to get your feet wet, step one would be find water, right? So find your people. That's kind of why we're going here. Just meeting these people can open up so many opportunities, like working together on projects or collaborating, getting your name out there, getting friendly. I think that probably always will be the best way to actually start finding work to do. This is probably one of the few places I've ever been where I should feel totally comfortable with vlogging, and I still feel awkward. Guaranteed there's going to be other people doing it there. This is the UK's national photo and video show. My main reason for going to the photography show was to network, but it wasn't with the sole purpose of just finding more work for me to do. It was also because I wanted to seek advice. I think one of the biggest mistakes that a person can make is getting to the point where they think they're beyond learning new things. It's so easy, I think, to reach a stage in learning where you're better than the average person by a decent way, and you sort of then start to rest on your laurels and you close your mind off to learning new techniques or doing things in different ways that could benefit you if you bothered to take the time out to learn. I'm confident with using a camera, I'm competent at editing, but I never want to think that I've got nothing left to learn. So when I was at the show, part of what I was doing was going around talking to other people and asking their advice so that I could progress more myself. So this is Maya, and she's agreed kindly to give a few thoughts of her own, because Maya does event photography, like concerts, things like that. So what would you say for someone that's trying to get into this as a job, not just a hobby?
I would say always market yourself well. Remember that everyone is also human, so don't be afraid to approach these, big artists or labels. Network as much as you can. Take every opportunity as it goes. Be the first to kind of push out your photos and show how much you're passionate about it, and that will relay in your work. People will see that and appreciate that. And yeah, just use social media as much as you can for it, because that's how I've got most of my work. Yeah, just always be passionate. Awesome. Show how passionate you are. I think that's really got to be half the battle, because doing that you're going to stand out above people that are kind of, half-hearted about getting into this. I think if you can show that you're all in, that is definitely going to make an impression on people for sure. What was your favourite part of the show?
I did really enjoy the Canon stand. There was a particular photographer that was on talking about wildlife photography. I myself am big into wildlife photography, so it was really great to talk to her and get that reassurance, which is what I was just talking about, that quite often you feel like you've got to go somewhere else, you've got to go to another country, you've got to go to Africa or Yellowstone in America, somewhere really exciting. But it was the reassuring bit that stay at home, you can photograph red squirrels, there's a lot of seabirds that are quite exciting. Scotland is also right on our doorstep, so a lot of great information back.
You can kind of build up in your head that you need to go to extravagant places or buy extravagant things, and you don't really. Just start with what you've got, what's available to you, and that's good enough. Yeah, pretty much. One of the lectures I listened to at the show was by Edinger. I think I've said that right. He gave a speech about vlogging, which is something that I know I really want to get better at, just for me, even if it doesn't affect my work. And you can probably guess what the big takeaways were. It was be consistent and don't overthink it, which ironically are my two biggest obstacles to try and overcome. but I digress. Seeking the advice of other creatives, if you then apply that advice, will fast track the progress you're making and ultimately help you to become a better artist overall. But of course, when you're relatively new to something, it can all feel a bit overwhelming. You might find yourself wandering around conventions or places like this, feeling like a bit of an imposter or thinking that you're not good enough to become part of this new world that you're discovering. If that sounds like you, and I could only give you one piece of advice, it would be to just switch your brain off and put yourself out there. You never know what opportunities might come from just telling people what it is you're trying to do. And there's absolutely no shame in being a beginner at something, so long as you're honest about that and don't try to oversell yourself. One of the first things that I did when I first started my business was post a reel to Instagram to tell everyone I knew what I was doing. And that felt scary at the time. I thought people would judge what I was trying to do or think that I was taking a big risk and that it wasn't sensible, things like that. But people were actually really supportive. A lot of that awesome footage that I showed you right at the start of this video came from projects I've worked on with one of my main clients, who was a friend that I started doing very small basic jobs for right back when I started this, and I wasn't very good yet. And it was very simple work, which was appropriate to my level of ability at the time. But then as I got better at what I did, over time that opened up more opportunities for me to do work with the same person, to the point where now we're making some really epic and adventurous videos. It's really cool stuff to be working on. All of that initially came from me texting and just asking if he needed a hand with any editing work, and 2 years down the line, that's progressed and turned into something that's really quite an exciting job. But I never would have had that opportunity if I hadn't have sent that text. I probably would have missed out on all of that. In a nutshell, I think a lot of this comes down to just pushing past any fear you have, being willing to back yourself and work hard at what you're doing. People aren't just going to hand you opportunities, you do have to ask for them. But at the end of the day, if you take steps to put yourself out there and to do that in the right way, things will work out. I felt so awkward and lacking in confidence at the start of doing all of this, and I didn't realize that there would be times where even making videos and editing would actually feel boring to me. You know, you don't think that you're gonna find what you like doing boring, but eventually you will if you do it enough, and if you're doing it on a deadline and if there's other constraints involved. It's just the nature of it. But I really enjoy what I do now. And yeah, I thought this was worth sharing as advice, because I think a lot of people have this almost fairy tale view of what pursuing a career, I hate that word career, but pursuing a career in this sort of field looks like. Having that mindset and seeing it as something that is a bit of a fairy tale almost makes it seem unrealistic to you, and like you'll never be able to actually do it in real life. But I don't think it's as complicated as what people think it is. I think it's actually pretty simple to get started, just not always easy. You have to have the courage to actually make the moves yourself. But I can honestly say it's one of the best decisions I've ever made, and I would recommend it to anyone.